Hey everybody, it's Michael and Peter here with GoodyReader.com. Today we're going to round off the Nook e-reader Trifecta and drop the Nook Glowlight. This is a second generation e-reader that has the frontlit display, and I remain apprehensive whether or not that this will actually damage or not. As our previous Nook video went, it actually ruined the screen.
Yeah, the last time we dropped the Simple Touch first generation, and that one survived actually pretty well. We dropped the Simple Touch with Glowlight. That one completely died. So we'll just give you an idea of what we're dealing with here. We have a whiteboard with two height markers, 5 foot, 3 foot. 3 foot height is when you're going to put it in your purse or your pocket. You miss. That's kind of the realistic height for a pocket miss. 5 foot, that's kind of like your dresser or your shelf or something, and then we're going to drop it from its back, side, and front. When we zoom in before we do the whole drop test, you're going to notice that there's this rubber protective kind of piping on the very outside, and we'll get a closer look at this after. I think this thing's just going to bounce. I don't think much is going to happen. It's not like the Kobo Aura where the screen is flush. It is actually sunken in. How do you think this is going to how do you think it's going to hold up?
Well, there's a different build quality with this. In previous Nook videos, the power button has always flown off.
Right.
And I don't think that will be the case with this because it actually doesn't really have the back power button right here. So with design changes, it'll be very interesting to see how this survives because it's really unlike the previous two generations of Nook. So let's go in for a closer look. Peter was mentioning about the rubber surrounding the e-reader, and this is exactly what we're talking about here. It does come off, but it's not meant to stay off. It'll be interesting to see if this rubber will actually increase when we drop it, the bounce rate, if it actually bounces a little bit higher. If it does, it may get destroyed a little bit faster. But as you can see, the e-reader's in mint condition. There's no grooves, no dings or anything like that. It is in perfect condition. But I don't think that this will be the case for much longer. The one benefit about e-readers is that they're really portable and they're light and they're meant to be carried in your pocket, in your bag, and whatnot. All the time, it may be in your pocket. You're getting up from a table, it may slip out. In other cases, you may be thinking your pocket is open, but it's zipped shut. And people more than ever are bringing their e-readers out. They're bringing them out in public, and most public services, not very soft, it's hardwood, it's concrete, things like that. So we're going to simulate a pocket miss from the 3 foot level. Don't drop that Nook, da-da. Alright, it's going for a closer look. As you see, the front of the e-reader, perfect condition. It seemed to have bounced on this top corner here, so you could see actually some, light scraping. I believe we could probably clean that off. Yeah, it's just messed with the concrete. It's a little scuffed, and then when it bounced, it hit the other corner. And as you can see, some minor damage there as well. Other than that, the e-reader seems to be working totally fine. I don't know if this will be the case for much longer. Let's continue to drop test. Most people leave their e-readers on a shelf, on a bedroom table, charging overnight. And then when you go and grab it, maybe the next morning or whenever it's fully charged, you're pulling it, but most of the time when you're leaving your e-reader charged, it's back down. I don't know too many people that leave it, any other way. Yeah, so in a lot of cases, you may accidentally drop it. And so we're going to drop it on its back from the 5 foot mark. Let's go. Whoa. I think that sounded worse than it actually did.
Street over here. Oh, man.
Okay, let's go in for a closer look. Kind of surprised that dropping it from the 5 foot mark directly on its back on concrete didn't look like it taked any damage at all. There's no scraping, there's no, grooves, there's nothing like that. So I think Barnes & Noble made a smart design choice with the rubber on its side and back.
And as you can see, everything does still work, and this was the most crucial thing. It wasn't so much about the damage on the Simple Touch with Glowlight as it was the screen actually malfunctioning when it hit the ground. So this one seems to be working just fine.
Okay, let's continue the tests. So as we mentioned at the top of the video, the Nook is surrounded by a layer of rubber. How does this come into play to actually add an extra layer of protection? we're going to check it out by dropping it on its side from the 5-foot mark. Now, Peter, let me see this book that you've been telling me a lot about.
Sure
I'm very
thing.
interested to see it. Oh, that's very interesting.
Oh no! Oh, that sounded harsh.
All right, let's go in for a closer look. Going in for a closer look, it looks like the rubber did suffer some minor superficial gouging and scratches, and it did start to pop off the e-reader, but it's easy to put it back on. Let's be honest, right? If we were to drop it a few more times, I think that the rubber would probably take a lot more damage. But one thing to bear in mind is if the rubber, got ruined, say it got mad scuffed, Barnes & Noble actually doesn't sell this as a third-party accessory or an official accessory. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So the last test is dropping it directly on its screen. Now, the one thing with most e-readers is that they have sunken screens, and so that kind of gives it protection where, unlike a tablet where the screen's flush with a bezel, tablets often crack or break, as people have experienced with iPhones for countless years. With an e-reader, Pete, how do you think that this will affect it dropping on screen?
Well, we've done a bunch of drop tests, even with the Kobo Aura 6-inch, which has a flush screen, and that didn't really do anything. I think it's more a matter of being sure you don't drop it on its back, because that seems to be where the main circuit board is. That seems to be the thing that actually destroys the screen, rather than you dropping it on its screen, because like you said, they're all sunken in about 2 millimeters. So when we say we drop it on the screen, we drop it on the front. It doesn't actually hit the screen because the ground we're dropping it on is flush.
Okay, so the one thing that I'm worried about is the frontlit display, because it's at the top of the unit. I wonder if dropping on screen will actually, pop off the assembly or ruin the lights. Well, there's no way to really talk about it. We have to just do it. Let's drop it like it's hot.
Ooh, that was a good one.
All right, let's go in for the final damage assessment. So it seemed to have taken some minor superficial little scrapes here and there, and then a small little chunk out of the corner. So you can see that the rubber is starting to separate, and it's getting harder to actually pop it into place. Why is this?
What happened is that we were trying to put the rubber back on, and it's like, oh, it's flush on the front, but there's a big gap on the back, and this is because underneath the rubber, the back of the physical reader is actually popping out, and one of the tabs is a little bit damaged. So the rubber's not really doing its job too well. We thought, hey, the rubber's on there. This thing's going to be super protected, but so far the rubber's taken damage. This still gets damaged everywhere else, and the back's popping off.
Okay, let's go in for a final report. So after many drop tests, the e-reader itself took some minor superficial damage, a lot of scrapes, a lot of bruises. Peter, how are your thoughts about how everything transpired?
Well, at first when we cracked this open and we're like, oh, this has a rubber kind of protective piping around the side. This is kind of ridiculous. And then we said, oh, wow, well, maybe when we drop it, it'll protect it. It did and it didn't. The device works, so that's a good sign, because the Barnes & Noble Nook Simple Touch with Glowlight completely died. The rubber took quite a bit of damage. It's actually starting to stretch a little bit after putting it off and on so many times, and the back part is actually popped off and one of the tabs is broken. And like Michael said, Barnes & Noble does not sell the rubbers individually, so when the rubber starts to go, if you do drop it, we only dropped it 4 times and it's already starting to kind of get a little bit stretched out and damaged. So,
Word.
I still don't really see a point of the rubber. I think that they could have just had not the old design, but went with a one-piece bezel rather than this rubber piping.
Okay, so the LEDs work. None of the front-lit LED lights were broken. The e-reader still works, in respect that there's nothing really wrong with it. There's no ghosting, page turns, everything like that are perfect. So it looks like, all in all, the Barnes & Noble Glowlight was successful. For GoodEreader.com, my name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Everybody take care.